Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Analyst Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Analyst Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. In this podcast, we'll dive into the strategies that top leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs are using to navigate and thrive in this era of accelerating technological change. Whether you're looking to lead more effectively, make smarter investments, or understand how to harness disruptive technologies for exponential growth, this podcast is for you. Each episode will feature conversations with visionary thinkers, industry pioneers, and innovative leaders who are redefining what's possible in today's rapidly evolving world. So if you're ready to start and stay ahead of this curve, let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. All right, everyone. Well, hey, welcome to another edition of the Exponential Growth Podcast. Today we got a dear friend, somebody I've known about 5, 6, 7-ish years through the Notre Dame Irish Angels that we were both a part of. And it's got an amazing story. I've got the chance to meet this leader, been to his offices in Grand Rapids, and watched his business grow and continue to grow. And Inc. 2000, Inc. 2000, 5,000. Okay, 5,000. And it's just really built an amazing company. It's got an amazing story that you're little hear a lot more about here. Welcome to the podcast, Art Betancourt, the CEO of AEBetancourt. Welcome, Art.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here. I'm excited to connect with you here.
All right, excellent. Well, I know a good chunk of your story. I did the drive out to Grand Rapids. I've been out to Grand Rapids multiple times, and for those who are listening, and this is a national audience, Grand Rapids, Michigan is, I think, probably a top, in my opinion, like a top 5 city in the Midwest.
I love it. It's an amazing city.
And it's an amazing city. One of the, I think, fastest growing, best places to live kind of, city. A lot of major development. So I know you live there, but you didn't start there. So you got a background. So we always like to start out, Art. Why don't you tell the viewers your story, kind of where it started, and then how you kind of, I think it's very amazing how you kind of started this company and the amazing success you've had. So from the beginning and take us through the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in a very different place than Grand Rapids. I actually grew up in Mesa, Arizona, the desert, and
That is very different, by the way.
there's a lot of people here in Grand Rapids when they're not from here and they're from maybe a warmer location. What brought them here? There's usually a spouse attached to that, and my wife is from here in Grand Rapids, but the move here was intentional. I saw we moved here 15 years ago, and I saw the potential then, and the way that it's grown since then has been incredible. And have the opportunity now to serve on a couple of regional boards, the economic clubs of Grand Rapids, and the Right Place as well. And the future of our city is great. It's a great place for business. It's a great place for community. And the future, the investment, the public-private partnership that happens here is really what's made this city thrive. But like I said, I grew up in Mesa, Arizona. My background is not, I would say, a normal, background for a business owner or a lot of other CEOs that I know. Our family. I'm first generation college graduate. And after I came out of high school, actually, I moved to Texas. I went into nonprofit there, and while I was there, eventually became head of a brand.
Wow.
And I originally started with going there as a gap year, essentially, to serve in the organization and learn and just kind of grow myself spiritually, professionally. And it was a great experience. And I was asked to stay on, and so while I did that, I was there for almost 10 years actually. And got to travel the world, got to work with national PR and advertising firms and just all kinds of amazing things that, especially somebody my age, to be able to get that experience was incredible. Made lifelong friends. But also while I was there, I went to school at night. Um, I was not the greatest high school student. So, my first year of college was essentially taking classes that didn't count towards my degree, just so I could take the classes that counted towards my degree. So it was a grind. I was working, 40, 50, 60 hours a week and going to night school. Eventually worked my way through that, got my degree in marketing. And that was when I felt called to really move out of the nonprofit space, go to for-profit, move to Grand Rapids to be closer to family, to raise our families. We started to have kids. And just kind of a weird connection through a friend, ended up going to work at a boutique M&A advisory and consulting firm. And was on the consulting side of the business, was focused on helping organizations with organic growth. So recruiting sales talent and training that sales talent within an organization. I became the youngest partner in the history of the company and
Wow.
built a great practice there.
This and this was like, so this was kind of your foray into, this talent business, right? I mean,
Yeah, well,
but it was like, because it's sales, right? And you're finding
yes.
the sales. Is that a good way
Well,
to
the
think about it,
interesting
or no?
thing was the nonprofit that I was at, the gap year that I mentioned, we would have every year between 300 and 500 kids come there right out of high school for a gap year like that, and they would work in the organization. So part of my job was recruiting people to come. It was when they got there, finding out where the best placement was for them, and then helping train them in the role.
Yeah.
And so unknowingly to me, for 10 years, I had been preparing to do this human capital talent acquisition role. And in a interesting way too, being a business owner. I mean, from, when I was there, I really just grasped hold of the concept that whatever is given to me, it's like I'm building a business within a business. I'm ultimately responsible for the outcome, and just got a lot of great leadership training and just so much stuff while I was there, exposure. And so unknowingly to me, that was in a massive way preparing me for my next step, and then also being a business owner. And so, I went and I did that for 8 years, built a great practice. And then in 2015, I like to say I made some crazy life decisions, and I started AEBetancourt. I went back to school and got my MBA at Notre Dame, and we had a fourth kid all at the same time, within
Oh, wow.
within a few months.
Yeah, I had my first kid when I got my MBA at Notre Dame as well.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's
Now,
a
but
lot.
you got the MBA. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got the MBA before you started AEB Benton.
No, at the same
No,
time, I started
at the
B
same time.
school
Well,
and
yeah,
started the
yeah.
company at the
So,
same
so
time.
walk us through that. Walk us through that thing, because that I found that was interesting.
Yeah, so I had this vision for one of the things that I'm really passionate about is helping other people achieve their goals and organizations, achieve their goals. When I think of a company, hitting a target or a number, I think of an individual attached to that, whether it's a business owner, potentially shareholders, a manager, a leader in an organization. When they're looking to hire people in, they're looking to bring somebody in that's going to essentially help them, the business, accomplish their goals. And if you can put the right people into the right role, it also is fulfilling for their life, and helps fuel other things that they want to do with their life. And so, um, uh, and so I was really passionate about that. And then if you take that, what excites me and what I found that I was good at, which was talent acquisition and human capital, um, uh, the ability to bring those together into a business in a way that I think would disrupt an industry. That I always like to say the recruiting industry, it's a $200 billion industry with the client satisfaction rate of a cable company. And and no offense against cable companies, um, uh, but but the primary reason I think is the way the fees are structured and some other things that the recruiter is never really on the same side of the table as the client, never on the same side of the table as the candidate, and it results in some, certainly there are great, recruiters out there, but in general, it can result in some maybe poor relationships, stressed outcomes, friction in relationships where there should actually be people should be working side by side to accomplish an outcome. So I had an idea of what that would look like while I started business school, and uh, the great thing was is as I was going through Notre Dame, I was test stressing my business and my business ideas through that. And, lucky me, I landed a big contract with the company. But this whole model that we have, really, things like, I would fail forward a lot. So I'd go to business, I'd go, I'm a salesperson at heart, even when I was at the nonprofit, I was for 2 years, I was cold dialing 60 to 100 dials, manual dialing every day, trying to
Totally.
get people to come to events and that kind of thing.
Like
Um,
always selling. Like a lot of these companies, every role you should be selling something. Sales is
yeah.
such an important
Well, and
skill.
it's fun going backtracking just a little bit to the Notre Dame thing in business school is I used to think, sales and marketing, that's the real foundation of business. Those accounting and finance guys, they screw everything up. They don't know what they're doing. But when I went to work at this M&A advisory firm, I saw the impact that they had on business owners and the trust and the relationship that was built, and really became to understand like the real thing that a business owner cherishes the most is value. And so I began to switch my thinking to, hey, I think accounting and finance is really foundational, but sales and marketing is really what it drives growth. It's the fuel. And the old saying that the primary reason that businesses fail is not because of a bad idea, it's because of lack of sales and lack of cash, right? So those two
Yeah.
things have to work together. And so that's why I started pursuing business school in the first place. And Notre Dame with just the network and the focus on leadership and impact on the world beyond just profit really appealed to me. But as I'm going through my classes, I'm trying to fail forward. I'm going and I'm pitching my business idea to try to get clients. And, it was my sales pitch was some version of, hey, you don't know me. I don't know your industry. I've never hired for that role before because I had a non-compete that spanned across the whole nation. And I'm doing a new model that I've never done before, but trust me, it'll work. And if I got lucky enough and they go, what's that new model? I would tell them and they'd go like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Why would somebody want to do that? And one of the classes that I went through was a marketing class with Joe Urbany, and we did this huge customer research thing that was focused on where do companies actually find value, and do you deliver it, your model, does that deliver it better than your competitors? And that really nailed it down for me. And what I realized was the things that really differentiated me were not what I was talking about, but the things that I was talking about were really the vehicle that allowed me to deliver those things. And then I went through Chuck Bamford's strategy class, Strategy Mindset 2.0, which is still one of my favorite books. I have all my employees read it before they come in to understand how we've built our strategy here. Really helped me then narrow down to say, okay, what are true differentiators here? Um, and as soon as I started going, kind of pitching it that way, then people go like, why doesn't everybody think about that? Why doesn't everybody do that? It makes so much sense. But even as I'm struggling through that, my first two customers were classmates of mine that were like, Art, I don't know about your crazy idea, but
I'll give you a shot.
but
I'll
I
give
need
you a
help and
shot.
I believe in you. So let's try it. Um, Even I was having this chicken or egg thing. It's like I land the work, but then I got to do the work. I got to raise enough capital to be able to hire employees if I really want to grow, because I didn't want to just be an individual consultant. I wanted to build something. Um, and one of our classes, my small group put together a business plan and said, "Here, this is how you grow your business." And I'm, okay, and I just went and followed it. And one of the things was of course, it was the banker in the group was like, go leverage your house and get a loan and go hire your first employee. And
Really? Yeah, 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 yeah,
and
yeah.
so that
Yeah,
was like,
or you could go to venture capital or something like that, but it's like, hey, it's
right.
probably easier to do that, at least to
Yeah.
start.
And I didn't need a lot, but it was enough. And kind of my burn the ships moment or whatever was, sitting at the credit union with my wife, signing that house away. Um, and uh, and then, we went for 3 months with zero, like I hired our first employee, went for 3 months with zero revenue. And I was just
Oh
going,
boy.
I had a
Oh boy.
pipeline. I thought it was going to close, and I kept just, not to get too spiritual, but First Corinthians 3, it talks about planting a seed and water it, but God makes it grow. And I've always applied that to sales. I'm like, I'm planting, I'm watering, it's got to grow. What's going on? And then suddenly it hit, and we're working 100-hour weeks and working on the weekends, and then I just try to start hiring people. It's really been a rocket ship since then. Our model, the way we differentiate ourselves is we're transparent. So we share our database of candidates. We show our clients the work that we're doing. We don't take on competing searches. We get dedicated times and teams to getting things done. The way we deliver that is that we bill hourly, and that's what I used to say. That was our differentiators, that we bill hourly. People are like, I don't get that, but when you put it in the context of that's how we deliver our competitive advantage, then it makes sense. And then kind of the other two things are the perfect fit hiring process. So it's not just about getting you to hire somebody; it's about hiring a high performer. Because we know that high performers can create as much as 400 times value
Yeah.
as an average performer, and a low performer can cost your organization about 15 times their base salary. Um,
I think Musk said had to put something out today that like one great hire is worth 1,000 average hires or something
Oh
like
man, yeah, yeah.
that.
What's interesting is, if you read through his biography, you read through like Steve Jobs' biography, I think this is where a lot of leaders miss, is one of your number one priorities in your business is recruiting as a leader of an organization. And if you look at some of these um, uh, 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 leaders that have scaled organizations, whether it's Nike or Walmart or Steve Jobs and Apple and all the stuff that Musk has done. They've been the chief recruiter of top talent in their organization. It's really fascinating to me. So yeah, so that's and then the kind of the fourth pillar of that is talent strategy, human capital consulting. So it's not just about hiring high performers, it's designing high performing cultures where they thrive. Um,
Totally.
and so, so since then, that was about 2 years in. We've really been on a rocket ship. We've been, I think the stat is like, after 5 years, only 50% of startups make it,
Yeah.
or new businesses make it, and only 20% of those ever exceed, of the ones that make it, only 20% of them ever exceed 1 million in revenue. So to pass those milestones has been incredible. This year, we were just recognized for the fifth year in a row as the fastest growing company in the US, 8 years as a best place to work regionally and nationally by the Best and Brightest. And we've also won the Inc. 5000 Power Partner Award, which means delivery and excellence. And so when you think about it, it's the triangle. It's quality, it's culture, and growth. And they say you can't have all three, and we've worked really hard to get all three. And I think those awards really help us validate that.
Well, it's an amazing story, and I know the story's got, you're just getting warmed up, so there's a lot ahead there. There are a couple
Yeah.
things that you mentioned. I just want to, I want to touch on for the listeners out there. When you started this, you've mentioned something like when you came up with the concept of the business. There's a Japanese term called an ikigai,
Okay.
and I think you found it. An ikigai is basically, and for those who are listening out there, it's a very powerful model. Japanese, it's like your reason for being. And it's like you want to be at the intersection of these four things: what you love, what you're good at,
Hmm.
what you can get paid for, and what the world needs.
Yeah.
Because you could love something, but you can make no money at it. You can be good at it, but you can make no money at it. But
Right.
but you want to find something that's really at the intersection. It's like four concentric circles. And as you were talking through how you found this. This is you were like operating right at the center of that. Now, here's the thing: is you got to reflect a little bit, because what we love today is maybe not what we loved 5 or 10 years ago. What we're good at today is not what we were good at 5 or 10 years ago, right? So for those
Yeah.
who are listening, it changes, and it's just this continuous self-assessment. So that was one thing I thought was very interesting, in how you did that. The second thing is how you talked about strategy and its importance in strategy. Obviously, the professor at Notre Dame. I had Jim Davis was a phenomenal professor
Yeah.
for my strategy class at Notre Dame. But strategy is so important, right? No matter what you're doing, and whether it's your own strategy, your business strategy, your team strategy, and laying that out in your differentiators, and for those of a phenomenal book, like an old school book, is The Art of War by
Yeah.
Sun Tzu. I mean, it's like really, really good. I think it's like 500 years, maybe even older, 1,000
Yeah.
years
I have a
old.
copy. Yeah.
And the last thing, as you were talking about, I just wrote a note here, was just, I think for our listeners out there, and look, I see thousands of startups a year. I invest in startups. I'm in the weeds with the startups, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and they are tough. Like,
Yeah.
you'll see Art, for those who are watching this, you see the Inc. 500s and the Power Partners and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't realize just how tough this, he mortgaged his house. He 3 months without a payroll. You don't know if you're going to make it. There's a bit of stress in there. You got 4 kids.
Yeah.
Those a lot of those stories don't come out when people see you and the success that you had. And I'm sure there's continues to be ups and downs along the way. Startups and businesses are tough, and you're just kind of a testament to kind of working through that toughness, getting to where you're at. And obviously, it's still just the first couple innings. You got a lot more to go. Those were just some, as you were telling your story, just things I wanted to, call out and really just, commend you on what you've built there.
Thank you. Our vision is to be a top three recognized brand in the nation for talent acquisition and talent strategy. And we have a great national footprint with executive and professional placement across a lot of industries. But I think that maybe what some people think, especially when we have a vision as big as we have, is um, the problems change, but it doesn't necessarily get any easier, right? So the problems that I had with just trying to hire a first employee versus when we had 8 employees, versus where we're at now as an organization, trying to develop process so things aren't as dependent on me, and putting the right leadership in place and kind of scaling to that next level. I have to grow as a person and as a leader, and there are different problems that I have to work through and get good at. And so, the things that even that I'm good at, that I was good at 6 years ago, if I stay there and I'm just good at that, then we stall, right? And for me, if you're not growing, you're dying. We're not going to get to that ultimate vision. And so it's something that I have to, and I always tell my leaders around us, is like the person that you are today, is not the person that is equipped to lead $100 million organization, right? And maybe you could get there, but probably wouldn't be great. It probably wouldn't be great. So, but in order to be that person, you have to continue to invest in yourself, by surrounding yourself by other leaders, by seeking out additional educational opportunities, by getting good mentors in your life, and being willing always to reevaluate where you're at and where you need to learn and where you need to grow. And sometimes those things aren't like the things that you love to do. But we don't, if we only did the things that we love to do, then I think you just kind of get stuck. And so, even the things that I love to do and still love to do, but when we were small, I still did a lot of things that I didn't like. But
Yeah.
you got to kind of you got to be in both of it. But ultimately, what you said really stood out to me, is that you have to grow, you have to continue to invest in yourself and your leadership if you really want to get to where you're going.
Totally. And I'm, look, I'm whatever, 53, going to be 54 here. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm
Yeah.
still, and where I want to be, I'm going to be changing and evolving, as well. All right. So good, man. So listeners there, a lot of meat there on an amazing story, and more to come along the journey there. We're going to now just segue into this exponential growth, right? The three areas, right? Trends, investing, leadership.
Yeah.
Let's talk about trends. So, you're you're in this whole talent space, right? There's a lot of things going on: AI, automation, humanoid robots, disruption, some job cuts in some areas, job growth in other areas. What, from your lens, and this is why I like this podcast, because the thesis is that we're in times of exponential change and growth.
Absolutely.
You have a lens on talent, organizations. What would you say to our audience are like the top two trends that they should be focused on, worried about, concerned, care about, educate themselves on, as we were talking about?
Yeah, right now there's, this talk of trend around AI, uh, replacing the professional worker or replacing the workforce. I think Musk is like the most extreme, where he's like, nobody has to work anymore, and we're all just going to get a huge basic minimum wage. And but the trend that I'm really seeing, and if you think about capitalism, you think about the U.S. Um, you know, anytime that we've introduced a new technology, people don't do less, they do more. Um, and so when I look at something like AI, while surely it will disrupt certain jobs, some jobs might go away, or the way we think of jobs now will be different. There will be a lot of new jobs that are created, but what I see it, at least for the workforce, for the economy, is that it's actually going to be a net positive. It's going to create more jobs. It's going to create more productivity. I mean, for every company that says, "Oh, we can do the same work in half amount of the time, so we're just going to lay off half of our workforce, or we only have to work 2 or 3 days a week," there's another company that's going, "Man, I can do, 3 times the work in the same amount of time. So I'm going to now do more, and I'm going to hire more people so I can win against my competitors, right?" And ultimately that's what wins the day. And so I think with all the trends that are going on, that productivity trend and using AI for that within organizations is ultimately, I think, is the trend that's going to win out.
Got it. So yeah, it's interesting because you're right. I you know, it's, I tend, I have the both, I tend to have more of your view on it. I was initially more on the destroying the jobs and more of the must thing. I've moved a little bit more towards yours, and there's other people that are saying kind of that, like really Andreessen Horowitz, Mark Andreessen, and other people are more of that mindset. Like, look, the
Yeah.
technology so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But things are definitely shifting. So I think that's very insightful. Okay, let's chat on investing, right? So as a CEO, right? This is the other tough thing. You got to make bets in investments, and you invest in people, you invest in software, you invest in physical location. You make bets on where you allocate capital in the most strategic way, which is another part of strategy, right? How is strategy, another definition is like strategic allocation of resources, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you also angel invest, right? You invested in some startups. We're in conversations about future of workforce, potential fund. What, but you also have your own portfolio of business, of investments, right? You have a family of four that you're thinking about as well. And so what, to our audience, and it's very diverse, students to executives to board members, all over the US, actually some internationally as well. What, how do you frame up and how do you think about it, investing? What would you like to tell those folks on how you think about investing in these times of, there's a lot of change going on, right? So what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, there's change, but oftentimes, when you've been through different, we're the moment that we've been alive has been really special in the sense of the the amount of change that's happened, the cycles of change that's happened in our lifetimes, from space exploration to the internet, to now, AI. It's like, I remember when it was a really cool thing when I found a cell phone when I was in junior high and showed up at my girlfriend's house on the phone to her because like nobody had a cell phone, right? Or, before there was internet. And so to see how the world has changed in those ways, I see this really as another iteration of that. And in that, there's going to be boom, there's going to be bust, and it's hard to predict which is which. And I think the tried and true is you invest in companies, but you also invest in people. And you have to look and say, is this um, do they have the right strategy, the right differentiators in mind, or are they willing to pivot? Where they need to pivot. Is there a need or is there a future perceived need here? But I also look at it from the perspective of um, um, uh, you know, uh, when I was in college, I took a history class. I loved history, and it was really for people that were history majors. The professor handed out these huge stack of books. It was like, read these, and then you're going to test on them. But one of them was about the 1849 gold rush,
Oh,
and
wow.
really what it talked about was that the the real money, like there were some people that got rich on gold, right? But the real broad money that was actually created from that was created from all the ancillary stuff around it supporting it, right? The Levi Strauss, jeans, they exist because of that.
Yeah.
And so when I look at investment, it's not just about hitting that home run. Dang, I wish I would have got in on SpaceX or Anthropic at the very beginning. I missed it. Those technologies are going to change the world. They already are, and they're going to change our life. And from an investment standpoint, you're not just looking for that big home run and being disappointed that you missed it. You're saying, what are those big home runs that are moving the world? And then what are all those things that are going to build wealth that are around that are supporting that? And I think that for me, that's how I look at not just how I'm investing in my own company and growing my own company, but when I'm looking at startups and angel investment or even established businesses, how are they taking advantage of the changing world? So it doesn't have to be sending rocket ships into space or they have the next new, LLM. It's what are all the things that are growing around those things that are going to build the next Levi Strauss or whatever. And so that's my perspective.
Yeah, no, the gold rush, as they call the picks and shovels, right? You got
Mhm.
there were the gold one, but then those who invested in the picks and the shovels and the
Yep,
things that were like to
absolutely.
your point that were supporting it. No, and I love history. Oh my gosh, the more I what they say, the more history you know, the more you could become addicted to it and
Yes,
studying more of it. So
absolutely.
it's totally I'm a history buff, especially American. I mean, American history, but really any history. Like I said, Art of War, Sun Tzu, and okay, so we talked some trends, thought on investment, leadership. So you're in the talent business. Leadership is vital. The one thing I didn't mention earlier, you said, you talked about cultures, right? And if you look at whether it's, Amazon, Musk's companies, Microsoft, I mean, they're really, it's culture, right? It's really it is like, it's the culture that these companies set up, right? Or what's Bridgewater out of New Jersey, the financial house, right? They had an interesting, unique culture,
Yeah.
and but they became very successful, and so there's um, but leadership. So we're in these times, and what are your with the backdrop of all this change that's going on, exponential change, what are your thoughts on leadership? Maybe what stays the same, what's tried and true no matter what technologies and things are coming? What maybe changes? What would you say to our listeners out there about just kind of your thoughts on leadership in these times?
Yeah. So, leadership for me, I think it's about having the courage and conviction of your values and being honest about those and leading truthfully in those ways. You know, Oftentimes when you think about company culture, we tend to cookie cutter it and say, you do it this way, and this is the best company culture. Well, the reality is, is that it doesn't, to me, it doesn't actually work that way. So, a good example, is potentially X or Twitter. Um, the changes that Musk made were a terrible culture for the people that were there, right? But the people that are there now and the people that stayed, that was the right culture for them. But he was honest about what that culture was and what the expectations were. And so those individuals thrive in that way. But that doesn't mean that's the only way. And so I think it's, as a leader, it's having the courage of your convictions, being honest, being transparent, and making sure that you're bringing people into the organization and surrounding yourself with people that also align with that. I think that as a leader, you constantly have to be willing to grow yourself, be willing to look inward at yourself and see where when I look at my own organization, or anything that I'm leading, if something goes wrong, like sure, maybe something did something wrong, but ultimately, me as the leader, I'm the person that maybe put that person in place, or I'm the person that allowed that to happen. And so, no matter what, ultimately, it rolls up to me, and I'm responsible for that, and it's my job to change that. So I think by having that ownership of those things within your own organization, or whatever it is that you're leading, is really how you kind of build this courageous leadership, how you have people that are really aligned and that are following you, and it can be done in a healthy way. It's when you don't have that, the courage, you try to be all things to all people, that I think it's where things can get really messy. But again, ultimately, you always have to look inward. When you're the head of an organization, no matter what happens, ultimately, at some point, you made a decision that enabled that to happen. And when I was a partner at the firm that I was at before, I started AEBetancourt, but I really didn't understand that concept as much until I started to have to sign personal guarantees. Uh, that's a completely different ball game when it's like you are completely on the line. So it doesn't matter if somebody else does something. Ultimately, you're the personal guarantee, and they're coming after you. And we talk,
Yeah.
you learn about the veil of protection in business school, or when you take the business law class. But the bank doesn't care about that. And you're going to sign or whatever. Investors, you're going to sign whatever, and you're giving that up because you got to have collateral, and ultimately it all comes up to you no matter what. And so you got to take that responsibility.
Well, too, and like, you payroll, right? You you have to at some point make the decision, do I get paid or does my team get paid?
Yeah.
Right. And so this is the thing that I think people ought to how hard it is to be a business owner, right? The company, you bill for a service, you're waiting 3 months for the check to come in, you got to pay your team, you don't get paid, and so
Yeah.
your team can get paid. I mean, there's so much in there on leadership, and you had a bunch of things that I want to just kind of highlight, right? And because you were talking about them, I'm like, you could throw tons of automation, tons of AI, humanoid robot, but if you're leading an organization, your courage, your conviction, being honest, being transparent, how you hire that are aligned to all these values, right? And having ownership of whatever happens in your organization, being, you're ultimately responsible for that, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't change, right? And those are like kind of key principles in there. And the X thing was interesting, right? Because yeah, he came in and he, brought out the kitchen sink and he just said, hey, this is gonna be, we're gonna work our butts. We got a lot of stuff to do. And some people bought into it, some people left, and
Yeah.
I think they've put some post out today. They said, the name X is gonna kill it. And he's actually done, I think they're a top 20 global site right now. So they've done all right. He's done all
Yeah.
right so far. We'll see. Um, but cool. So no, those very, very, very insightful, and obviously from a leader who's an Inc. 5 thousand leader and working your way up there. Art, how do people stay connected to you? I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but how do people stay connected to you, follow you on social media?
Yeah, so social media, best way is LinkedIn. As a recruiter and business, that's our primary tool and connection. It's linkedin.com/Arthur Betancourt. That's how you can find me. You can get to our website, aebetancourt.com. And we have great content and podcasts and content around how to drive performance within an organization, how to hire, how to find the right people, and again, also how to design high performing cultures as well. So come to our website, find me on LinkedIn. Those are the two best ways to connect with me.
Excellent. And obviously, if you're out in beautiful Grand Rapids, don't hesitate to look
Yeah.
up
Or find
Art.
me in the Hellas event, so
Yeah, yeah. I come to an
yeah.
analyst event where Art's a major supporter and member there. Well, excellent, Art. Well, hey, I know you got a lot coming on. We're honored to have you on the pod, and thanks for making it a priority and jumping on. And yeah, wish you continued success.
All right. Thanks, David. I appreciate it.
All right.